Okay. Hey, you guys, I'm checking out a different streaming app while at the same time going live, streaming live. So, and welcome back to my channel. We're going to see if this works. Hopefully, it records. Maybe I should record also to make sure. How are you guys doing? I feel like I'm always trying out something different. We have all of these applications and tools and things like that, and you know, just trying to access which one is the best one for me to use, and at the same time have all of the neat little tools that I want when I use it. Nothing like recording a video and then you can't access it, which is what I did the other day. And I can see that it was streamed, but I can't get access to the video. So definitely don't want that to happen. All right, so I'm just trying to see if I'm live on YouTube, and it actually doesn't look like it. So before I do anything further, um, before I talk or anything, it looks like I'm on live, but I can't actually see the live streaming. So give me 1 minute, you guys. Let me see if, okay, I can see myself. So it's working. What's up, everybody? All right, so we're gonna get started. Because I don't want this to be long. This is part two of the conversation I had with two fantastic young ladies, Joy and Sonia, 2 days ago. I think it was 2 days ago, and where we talked about bringing sand to the beach. That whole idea, that whole concept around bringing sand to the beach, and you know, would you do it? Should you do it? And just our perspective on maybe why or why not, why we don't do it, and what the alternatives are. And so there were a couple things that we talked about. We were on for 2 hours, so I wanted to make sure we allow time for other things in the day. And so y'all have to pardon me. I did this curly Q thing with my hair, and just trying to get it to be balanced. So it's really curly, but anyway, thumbs up or down if you like the hair. It doesn't bother me either way. But I love to hear you guys' opinions. So what I wanted to talk about today, I want to expand on, are men different in different parts of the world? And this idea of fetishism, are we confusing adoration and admiration with fetishism? And is fetishism bad? So y'all know I'm gonna read the definitions. Okay. I'm gonna read the definitions. So no worries. Don't even worry. Count on me for that. So I'm all set, as set as I'm gonna be. So let's get rocking and rolling. One of the things that I think that I feel I experience, or that comes up quite often in the conversation around dating, and what do men want? What do men want? What do men want? We also hear what women want, but as a woman, I think I constantly am more lately hearing what a guy wants. And one of the things that always stands out is a man won't select you if you are not his piece and if you can't be his piece. And I've been just struggling with this because it's often when someone says that, or this table thing, there's this one-sided perspective, one-sided view in which they are stating it. It's not a holistic, we should be bringing something to the table, or we should be bringing each other peace. It's, ladies, what are you bringing to the table, and are you the man's piece? And along with that, there's almost no accountability for the negative things that happen as a result of um, kind of blindly going in at on one side. Also, I hope you guys can actually hear because I can't hear. So let me see. Yep. Okay. That's all I want to do. Sound check. Sorry, you guys. I don't have anybody else on the sound check for me. So, the just talking about the expectations that we put on one another, and I want to just shed some light on my thought process around, are men really different, and this fetish idea concept, and then I want to end with 4 ways to kind of position yourself to start getting into that mindset, that headspace of getting what you want, male or female. Of course, I'm going to address it from a female's point of view, looking for a male significant other. So, one of the main questions that comes up often is, are men so different? And I find that just in general, we do kind of get a little agitated, men or women, when we're compared to other people that aren't us, right? And somewhat like rightfully so, but in other aspects of it, my thing is I don't get offended by anything that doesn't. I try not to get offended by anything that does not directly touch me or impact me, because there's always going to be something that is a comparison, right? I mean, just in life, we everything is compared. We compare. So I compare my eyebrows. So it's just like something that happens, right? And one of the things that we can't really worry ourselves about is whether or not somebody is saying that something or something else is equivalent to, better than, worse than, whatever. And I think when we get to the 4 things that you can do to position yourself, it'll make more sense, when we talk about only allow energy around the things that you truly have control over, right? And I know a lot of times it's easier said than done, but that's really it. It's just, and in the world we live in, specifically in the United States, everything we do is based on a comparison, which is why I am doing a verbal definition comparison today, because partly to kind of shed light on how we talk about things, uh, define them. If you guys ever listen to me on radio, I always define terms and words, because I feel like at the very least, if we're going to argue, we should be arguing apples to apples. Okay. So, the first thing around, are men around the world any different? So, somebody says, I watched a video, somebody sent me, are white men better than black men, or are no, are white men better around in different countries, something, or no, are they better lovers? And I'm assuming the comparison is to black men. But there seems to be, like, in our world, and a lot of people ask, why do we talk about race so much? Because we live in a society where everything is based on race, and we can say that it's not. But if I can't even get a library card without telling you what ethnicity or race I am, then everything is based on race. When you're saying that you do social services based on racial background and racial statistics, then everything is based on race, right? Otherwise, why ask? If it doesn't matter, why ask? So, on one hand, we have to ignore it, and on the other hand, we have to live in it. We have to deal with the repercussions of being, on this statistical scale, that everybody who benefits from the scale wants those who don't benefit to ignore. Y'all can miss me with that. It exists, so we're going to talk about it, right? And so the easy answer, the easy, non-easy answer to, are men around the world different? The answer is yes. And the answer is also no. I know, make up your mind, because there's never any 100% answer, right? And what I want to say around the no, they're not different, and that is more from an anatomical perspective. Is that the right word? Anatomical perspective. Yeah. And so while body types can be vastly different and some more appealing than others, and then some people don't even care about body types. You do have skin complexion, the things that we are either naturally drawn to or, not interested in. And, we have, anatomy parts and pieces and things like that. But I want to say, across the board, there is no real 100% proof that every single non-black male has a little ding-a-ling. And I will prove, I can't prove that because I'm not going to show you one, but I know that factually. There's just no way to know that. Skin color does not dictate it. Now, genetics and all of that kind of stuff can, and who knows, maybe even environmental things can dictate it. But one of the things that I had been toying around having a conversation with about is, why is it that there's such a huge stigma put on like black male anatomy, the big mandingo, and there's that other concept around the really small. And I'm going to tell you that it swings both ways. Sometimes black black ain't always the mandingo, and sometimes white ain't always the skinny dingo, right? And these are things that I've heard from friends as well. And when I say white, maybe what I'll say is non-black, because that really encompasses every other ethnic race. And that's ultimately how it kind of breaks down, whether we want to say it that way or not, right? There's black, there's us, and then there's everybody else. And that kind of sucks to have to say, because in 9 times out of 10 it never is a benefit to black people. Okay, so I've often wondered why that criteria of, physicality has always been placed on the black or the brown man, that, he's well endowed. And then in addition to that, as a black woman, why I feel like there is so much more pressure, whether it's spoken or not, for me to date or wait for a black man, right? Whereas we hear about, interracial relationships with, black men and other women, but that's typically, in my opinion, from what I've experienced and what I've seen, is because those black men are tend to be or tend to badmouth um, black women. Do not disturb. Tend to mouth badmouth black women and use that as the reason why they're dating outside of the race. How about you're dating outside of your race, or you're dating whoever it is you want to date because you like them? Why does it have to be because of all these other things? And so we hear that all the time, right? So if I go to the differences, and I've already explained the things that I don't think are different, I don't honestly think that now, and I will say that I've had more experience with one ethnic group than any other. So I have had no experience with, but just because you say a person is black does not, it's not indicative of everyone of a certain shade. Okay, so let's go there. But the reason I said yes, there is a difference is because I'm looking past the anatomy, and experience affords you this ability to look past just the basic physical anatomy part. uh, Experience and just being, conscious of the reality of a lot of the things that we say we want. So getting to know what you want helps you to better evaluate what's really a positive and what's a negative, what's something you want and what's something you don't want, what matters and what doesn't matter. So some of the things that, while we're very similar, the things that I think kind of stand out or are make us different in terms of a relationship, the things that I think basically either uh, make or break this, you know, union that we're trying to have, are these things: confidence, compassion, fulfillment, state of mind, this idea of competition, religious beliefs, um, humanistic traumas, and natural appreciation. So, appearance appreciation, um, outside of, and that's really one I've added, created specifically about women. Uh, I'll get into that a little bit. There are, I realize that, more and more that the things that I just named are, more like fundamental, foundational elements that no matter what the complexion, ethnicity, background, whatever of a person, regardless of the mandingo size or lack thereof or whatever, these things are end up being the things that drive how the relationship flows, how it grows, whether it exists or not, right? And for me, those are the things that I realized that no matter, I could have somebody who looked like that Black king was supposed to look and could not fulfill, deliver any of these things that actually helped me be the peace that this person says that they need, um, or anything else for that matter, right? And so, how could I be the peace if I'm always in a stressful state? Because the person that I'm engaging with is always in a stressful state. We're always in competition with one another. It's one of the things that I find kind of always happens. It's like, and sometimes it's unspoken, but in traumatic relationships, we tend to try to one up. Well, who's had it worse? Who's, this and that happens in any ethnicity. That's why I said in traumatic relationships, relationships where we are literally bonded by the same trauma, we literally fight over whose trauma is worse. And that's one of the reasons why I kind of go to the thought around, is that the best thing to actually want, is someone that you actually have a trauma bond with. Okay. So, a couple things. I feel like there's two types of love. There's the kind of love that is uh, exactly what you know, where you've been, what experiences you've had, and you guys share all that. So it's that, it doesn't have to be trauma bonded. It could simply be that you guys grew up in the same neighborhood. We see a lot of people who've known people since they were in high school or junior high, and they end up getting married, and it's fantastic. Or not. Look at LeBron and, or, I know Shaq and Shawnee are not together, but they've been together since they were in high school. And, once the fame kicked in, then things changed, right? But so you could, 9 times out of 10, I think we naturally gravitate to what we know and what's comfortable. And I kind of push back on that as I've started to experience life, because it seems like you always want to be around somebody that you can talk to, someone that you can have a relationship with. But does that mean that they had to have gone through the same thing that you went through in order to understand you? And as I'm learning, in some cases, if a person is not open and empathetic, yes. But if a person is not open and empathetic, then that means you're not supposed to be with them. Especially if you want them to understand you. I think what happens is we try to force people who are our ideal visual, physical, to be our ideal mental, right? Um, and it doesn't work that way. I think we almost have to get the mental, and before we commit to the mental, is the physical something that you can work with, whether it's, physically looking like, because I'm not saying anybody should just accept anything, because, if you can't stand to look at somebody, you just can't stand to look at somebody, right? But I think as you've experienced these relationships where, man, you always got somebody fine, you always got, ooh, you always this, that, and the other, but you realize that they're you're not with them, because something isn't working. There's always another piece that's missing. We kind of have to look at, are we dating in love level one where that person has to be just like us or have experienced things just like us so we could regurgitate the same traumas over and over. And that's what I feel like we do. And maybe that's just something that I see because of social media, but we literally will regurgitate the same mishaps and misgivings. And sometimes it's necessary because we're in a state of fight right now, and we're past the flight. We've been flighting for the last 400 plus years. Now we're in a state of fight. And so, yeah, you do want people who, understand the mentality that you're in and where you've kind of been forced to be. You don't really have a choice, but also to understand that we don't want to be in a non-peaceful state. As women, we don't want to be in a state where we're always in combat. We're combative with ourselves or with other people. We're always in combat with a situation. We don't want that. Like, I don't think anyone wants that. I think what happens is specifically Black women have been put in a position where we've had to be the head of households, where Black men have been put in a position to not even have a household. And then what we've done is then they put us back together, and then we are mad at each other because he didn't save us and she didn't wait. She went and got the job, so now she can take care of herself, and he's mad because now he feels like she doesn't need him. And so I think this is why we clash, right? So you can want that kind of love, or you can want what I call love, compassion, love companionship that more accurately fits what your future looks like. So when we start to look at what is it that I want, what type of life do I want, sometimes that does not mirror being in a trauma bonded situation, right? It also does not necessarily mean that the person has to look like what society or grandparents, parents, church, whatever says that person is supposed to look like, right? The bottom line is whichever one you choose, both take effort. So you can start off with, okay, man, we bonded. Oh my God, we got so much in common. We could talk about anything. And I've been in situations where it's just like, man, it's amazing. But then you realize, God, this is all we talk about. Like, this is literally all we talk about. And I think what happened is I've gotten to a point where I'm just tired of talking about trauma. And I think it's because I got an opportunity to experience not talking about the trauma, but talking about it from a perspective of this is why, rather than, man, you already know what that is. Y'all remember Something New? And Sanaa Lathan's character ended up meeting the gardener, and the gardener was the white guy, Simon, whatever his last name is. But she got with the black guy that everybody, what's his name? He's in everything. I can see his face, but I can't think of his name. But he was the accountant or whatever he was, that everybody thought he had the money. They both had things in common because they both were workaholics and all that. But she had gotten a little bit of a taste of the gardener. She had gotten a little bit of a taste of paint these walls a different color. She got a little bit of a taste of doing something outside of what she comfortably did. She got a little bit of taste of explaining the black tax, you know, or being comfortable that somebody, when you say it, they already know what you mean. And I get that. I get that. There's comfort in that. But when do we graduate and grow from that? If we say that we want to graduate and grow from it, right? I know there are people in the world that literally like to hang on to sorrow and pain. I get it. But there are some people in the world that literally, like when we say we're tired of talking about race, relations, and stuff, we're tired of talking about it. But until there is a glimpse of equality, because we don't have a glimpse of equality, what we have is we have systems that have been put in place to, kind of flip the script a little bit, and now we're just competing with one another. Low man on the totem pole still competing with low man on the totem pole. So we still need to talk about it because none of the systems that have been put in place that were specifically created to keep people of a certain race and a certain class at a low level, those things have not been changed. And so we constantly have to talk about them, right? It's no same reason we still talk about the environment, same reason we talk about, salt and, the water levels and all the fresh water melting into the sea, and mixing with the seawater. I mean, because it's something that has not been dealt with. We need to figure it out because it's going to implode at some point, right? So the bottom line is, in my opinion, you've got these two different love types. You've got the type that says, you know what, I'm just gonna be comfortable and I'm just gonna settle for somebody who, man, when I come home, we could both just look at each other and be like, man, this day was, ooh, you know what happened? You know what Bill did, man. You know how I gotta sit up and that. Or we can sit in a space that says, man, I want to climb a mountain and I want to be with somebody who wants to climb a mountain, right? Again, both take effort. Which one do you want to spend your time and energy um, fostering, So the next part of this I want to talk about was the fetish part. So let's define the adoration, the admiration, and this idea of the fetish. Okay. I don't know how long I've been on, y'all. I don't know if I can see my time. Oh, 25 minutes. Okay. So first let's define adoration, which I think we are confusing sometimes with fetishism because we just love to say the word, or people just love to say the word, right? And if you guys are on, please jump in the chat and say what's up. Hopefully, you guys will subscribe as I chat about this um, as well. So, adoration is basically defined as a deep love and respect. Let me see if I can do this. I have this cool little tool that lets me add something so you guys can actually see. All right, so while I'm talking a little bit, yes, indeed, I'm talking, baby, you and me. All right, so let's look up adoration. All right. Adoration, deep love and respect, worship and veneration. So, when somebody is adoring someone, you adore them, you love them, you're devoted, you love something about them, those kinds of things, right? Let's look up admiration. It is respect and warm approval, something regarded as impressive or worthy of respect. It's pleasurable contemplation. So, all right. So we like to be adored and admired. Now let's look at what fetish means. All right. And we'll look up fetishizing. It's about the same thing, but it's basically a form of sexual desire in which gratification is linked to an abnormal degree to a particular object, an item of clothing, a part of the body, etc. So, like when somebody fetishes over, like I have a tooth fetish, and I say that all the time, or mouth fetish, like or or teeth, and I have this thing about teeth, and there's just different things, jawline. I don't know. I have a fetish for rock climbing. So an inanimate object worshipped for its supposed magical powers. So that's the other definition that I actually like, or because it is considered to be inhabited by a spirit. So it can also be linked to something that is worshipped for its supposed magical powers. Do we fetish God? I don't know. I'm just gonna throw that out there, right? So that's a quick, read of the definition. So I like to pull that up. I'll just leave that there for now. Um, so that's what those three terms mean. So when we're talking, are we literally talking about someone who adores us, or someone who is desiring us for sexual gratification? And the reason I wanted to bring this up is I have this question that we were talking about in the group, and it's just like, sometimes we feel like other ethnicities, like if Black women go to certain places, we stand out. And if you're being catcalled and stuff, is that really a fetish or is it adoration, right? In some cases, that it is. But want to ask this question: what is the difference between being in a non, black environment, and men Googling and catcalling you, or not even catcalling you, but literally coming up and showing interest and, wanting to date you, whatever, and a black man coming up and not wanting to wife you, but just wanting to sex you, right? So it always seems like we come to this conclusion of, if he's not black from for a black woman, this is something I experienced directly, and I've experienced this with people who don't even know me, who, if I even look like I'm going to post something about, mixed relation love, which, I mean, some of us might not actually be here if it wasn't the mixed relation love, right? So the assumptions that people make and the hatred, and, a lot of us have mixed race in our family. So to walk around and not to say that it's been a great situation, relationship, or whatever with it, but a lot of us have that. And so to ignore it is, semi crazy, right? But I've been kind of abruptly hit in the face with people who are angry simply because I'll post something with interracial relations, and I'm not even at that point looking at the fact that it's a black and a white thing, or a black and an Asian, or whatever the mixes may be. I'm not even looking at that. I was actually looking at the adoration that they had for each other, and this person immediately said, because the guy was white, that he was fetishizing her. And I was like, this chick is bald headed. She doesn't have like long flowy hair. She's super dark. What do we normally see? And what do we see a lot? Not normally, because it's not everybody. But the ones who tend to speak up are the ones who do the most damage, right? And so a lot of times in the black community, we have a lot of black men who literally will say they don't like dark women. But you get men of other races who love dark women. I've had men of other ethnicities, other races, literally tell me that I'm not necessarily attractive because I'm not dark enough. Because in their mind, if I'm going to be with somebody black, I want black. Like, they want to feel like they know, even though colorism doesn't really define that, Um, but I've experienced that being light skinned sucks sometimes, y'all. Sometimes it really sucks. People either really like you because you're of a lighter complexion. I'm kind of in between. I'm not really light, but I'm not dark either. So I kind of fit in that mix of, either you don't like me or you don't. I don't have the curly, light straight hair or whatever. So you're gonna get all this whole package that you're gonna get. And so one of the things that happened when I posted this particular post, somebody came at me and was like, "No, I don't want no love that looks like that." And it kind of hit me, and they were like, why would I want a white represent something that, or duplicate something that represents a white man fetishing a black woman? And I was like, you got all of that from um the pictures of them being together as a couple that, you know had been together for a while. And I was like, wow. And then he basically went off on me about me not being a queen no more, which I never asked him to call me a queen in the first place. But he went on a tangent. Never met this guy, ever, ever, ever. And I was like, calm down. Yeah, I said, we'll talk about race relations on another post. I simply wanted to um, kind of focus on the love, and those were all the things that I listed before. What you're looking for is that admiration, that confidence, that person that is compassionate with you, that person who understands you, that person who appreciates who you are, not just because you're another black person. So is that a fetishism? Maybe it's not sexually related, but it's this idea that, you can't be with anything else except this, even if this color does not treat you right, doesn't want you, isn't really making the efforts to be with you, or the ones that aren't what you're looking for. You still have to accept it because at least it's black. And I think that's unfair. I think it's cruel punishment, quite frankly, to try to force someone to be in this box, because that's where, you know a group or person, where that person who's lashing out feels comfortable. right? And so I sat and I was just like, is this only a problem? I think I mentioned this when we were talking in the chat on the live the other day. Is fetishism only a problem when it's done by someone of another race that isn't black? Is this fetishism thing something we really only hear about in the black community? I feel like a lot of the negativity, um, well, it's all across the board. Maybe it's just an American thing. I know it's not. I know in the UK and different places that, the treatment of Black people and even interracial relationships is, somewhat frowned upon still in some places. But I also know from traveling that interracial relationships, I'm going to even say in the continent of Africa, where you see a lot of still European influence, the interracial relationship part of those communities has been around for hundreds of years. So like when you're walking around and you see it, like it's almost like, it's like this, I had this surprised look on my face, like, oh, so this is just a normal thing. Whether we like it, the reason why it's there or not, it's not that, you go to these places and there's no interracial interaction at all because they're black communities. You actually, in my opinion, I felt like you saw more and it was more blatant, it was more out in the open. Um, Whereas in the States, we still have this, we're kind of segregated by this confederacy that I feel still exists, right? So back to the fetish part and all that. And so I was wondering, and you guys chime in, if it's fetishism, if a non-black person is interested in a non-black male is interested in a black woman, is it fetishism when a black man wants anything other than a black woman because of her hair, because she gonna give me mixed baby light-skinned babies with good hair? Is it, and is there anything wrong with that? Is there anything wrong with wanting to literally biographically design your child? I mean, wealthy people do it all the time, right? This is the reason why I can be so accepting with things, because on one hand, this classism of hating everything outside of what we are comfortable with is something that I think is pushed into smaller communities so that we spend so much time combating and fighting with one another. We're missing the bigger picture. And so all of these things that we fight and combat, it's around us all day, every day. Like it's stuff that we see all day, every day. And one of the reasons why I really wanted to talk about this relationship thing from a black woman's perspective is because I'm just constantly being bombarded this year with, God, I feel like we're the last of the totem pole in America, at least. I know in other countries and stuff like that, religion plays a big part and that kind of thing. But I feel like we literally are the last ones walking around here claiming that we this ideal that I'm gonna wait. We know all the statistics. We know we will get in these groups and argue back and forth about, what this, you know, all these brothers. I mean, how do you have 500 different black relationship groups, and every single woman and man is in there complaining? You got men complaining about black women and black women complaining about black men, and we still haven't figured out people are people, anatomy is anatomy. If a person is not meeting the criteria that you need to actually prosper, what's actually holding us to getting to that next state, the state where we're actually prosperous? Is it really colorism? And then we turn up our nose to other cultures where colorism is major. Well, what's the difference, right? Um, okay, so I'm going to read a couple things. So let's say we exclude the obvious stuff like this, the fetishism part. Like let's say we exclude lustful contenders from this list of people that we would potentially consider dating. Um, Do we as women want someone who feels like he has to pick us? It's like when you playing dodgeball, you got two teams and they pick the captain. You like, please don't let me be the last one. Don't let me be the last one. You know, because you don't want to be, or like the last three, like, okay, oh, we got to take the worst of the litter, right? Do you want somebody that simply picks you because, well, you kind of have to, we don't have a choice? You want like that monarchy kind of thing? Is that what you want? Or do you want the person who has true admiration and adoration for you to pick you? Um, do you want someone who's actually intrigued with you, by you, and wants to learn more about you? And just being Black doesn't mean that we know or understand each other, because one of the things that I can contest to, yeah, is this amazing thing that just befuddles me. How much, just sometimes men in general, but yeah, I'll just say men in general because I've had limited experience outside of, the Black man. But how much men in general just don't even take time to understand women's anatomy, don't take time to, understand how things work, and, all of this stuff. And when you're constantly met with, uh, the subtle persuasions or subtle suggestions around hair, what you should do with your hair, what you're gonna do with your. How many times have we heard Black men say, "What you gonna do with your hair?" I have probably not dated quite a few of men who were attracted to me when I had my excuse me, protective style in. And then when I wear my natural hair, they're probably not as attracted to me, right? Because they didn't fall in love with the me, they fell in love with the light skinned, oh, curly hair or whatever hair I was wearing at the time, kind of thing. And then when, all of that comes off, which is very often, and now more than ever, those same people aren't necessarily as drawn in. So what's the difference in wanting or pursuing or trying to present myself in a way that makes that person comfortable to be with me because, quote unquote, we're supposed to be together because of our skin complexion, or me being comfortable being around someone who literally, the most unexpected people in this last 2 years of journeying, who commented about where your hair were non-Black. This idea of um, this European beauty standard, I find really sits heavy in brown and Black communities. Whereas other people, when you see other people who are not American, who are dating Black women, for example, they don't always care as much about the hair. Um, Many of them are very understanding of the wigs and the weaves and stuff like that. The protective styles. They understand some of those things. Some don't, but I don't think those would necessarily be the ones that you would end up running into. Now, if there are people who literally think that, one day your hair is super short and the next day is super long and that's your hair, then that's just like a mental issue. That's something else, right? But I say all that to say, there I've literally encountered every different ethnic groups in my travels who, outside of um, those who look like me and who are a darker complexion than me. So outside of those, the other people tend to um, seem to gravitate and accept, and it's not this, oh, I want to play in your hair thing. Like, I didn't even get that. Like, I didn't get any of that, but I definitely got this feeling of finally feeling comfortable, which with the state that my hair was in at that time, which was kind of like, okay, it's time to get a redo, and always feeling uncomfortable. Hey, if you guys know my story, you know, hair has always been a traumatic thing for me. And so to be in the position and in the presence of people who I didn't when they touched it, and you know, that cringe, and that's gonna be, maybe I'll do a whole nother video on that because I really haven't dug deep and talked about those experiences and stuff. But always cringing when someone touches your hair because it's not what they expect, or you know, when you're wearing the protective style, are they gonna, you know, freak out, you know. I've had more black men freak out than anybody else, even though obviously I don't have the one-to-one comparisons. I've just experienced that a little bit more, and maybe what I the traumatic part was is who I experienced it from, right? It's almost like someone who's out of shape saying, you know, I ain't dating somebody who's out of shape. Okay, so are you going to work on getting in shape too, or are you just the kind of person who, you know, and to each his own, everybody has a preference, right? I get it, but for me, that's how I resonated. You know, it's like, you know, you would look at a person and go, you don't even have a right to, like, I'm accepting you as you are, but you don't accept me as I am. And as I encountered or experienced more of those types of things, those are the types of things that I sat back and said, okay, am I being actually fair to myself? Um, you know, am I really getting what I want, experiencing what I want? Okay, so I want to go through the four things um, that I think you can do to position yourself to actually start to receive what you want, whether it's in relationship. And these are things that I've started working on, and these are things that like open up that gate of manifestation, and you actually start to see the things that you wish for, but actually speak into existence, and not just saying it out loud, but you literally, you know, go through this process. What that actually looks like and the benefit of it. Um, Okay, that's a whole other thing. I had to try to read this note that I wrote. Okay, so the four things, y'all, and then I'm gonna close out. All right, is one, manifest it. But how do you manifest it? Not just by saying it, because you know you'd be like, I just want to say it. Some people call it praying. You know, some people go on going in the closet, whatever. You know, speaking it into existence. But I think the key to manifestation is the believing part. So some people call it belief, some people call it faith, whatever. But it's truly believing that it is what you want and what you deserve to have, right? When you truly deep down get to that, where you can seriously say, you know, not sheepishly, I would love to. No, this is. I know I want this. I know I felt it. I know this is what I want, right? When you can do that. Number two, and these can be intertwined, but a lot of times the manifestation of identifying what it is happens first, right? The second part is, to me, is positioning. Start doing the self work. Uh, Oftentimes we hear that whole thing about positioning, put yourself in a physical position for him to run into you physically. You know, and it's not always that, it's rarely that. It's really positioning yourself in the space that you're in the mental space that you're in, physically, in the physical space that you're in, to kind of heal from all the things that have happened, even the things that you don't think that have happened. A lot of times, one of the things that I would encounter is the asking why. Why am I single? Why am I, you know, is it really what, you know, the life that I'm living? You know, when you hear people say, well, you're single because you won't sit down. But there's 7 billion people in the world, and half of those are men. And, you know, let's say a quarter of those, 25% of those are at least of age, over 30, 40 years old. So it can't be because I won't sit in one space. There's nothing that defines life and living that we have to sit within a certain diameter or circumference and on a globe. There's nothing that says that. And once I release that negativity that was being shoved down my throat, I started to open up that the reality is, if I wanted an opportunity, I would have to start considering that it would likely come from a source outside of where I had been. And specifically because I don't, at this point, really choose to go back where I was. So I have to be looking at option number two, which is, what does my future look like? And if I'm living in that respect of thought, then you get to number three, which is living it. If I'm living in it, you start to naturally create what you're manifesting, or create the space for the manifesting, which brings us to number four, which is receiving it, which one of the things that we talked about in the chat with the ladies is how do we receive this? If you guys missed that, go back. It's on my YouTube from a Sunday, October 2nd. Go back and take a listen to that. It was like a 2-hour conversation, but we hit a lot of different things. And one of the things I think that, we hit at the end was the reception, receiving from a woman's perspective. How do we receive things when we've been told over and over again, this is all you want, this is all you want. But in our minds, like, we are like, it's not what I want. It's what you want. It's what you want me to want. It's not what I want. And I'm going to stand on my own strength and say that if God wants us to have abundance, if I truly believe in that, and abundance is also my happiness, then even if my happiness does not replicate what you think that happiness should be, that doesn't mean that I don't deserve some form of happiness. So maybe it just doesn't look like the picture that you have in your mind, right? And so in order to receive, we've got to be able to wipe clean that slate that says, this is what it has to look like. This is the order in which it needs to be. You need to do this, that, and the other, get married and have these babies and take care of home, and all of these other little components and things like that don't necessarily always pan out to what we really wanted, which is why in the end, a lot of times you find people getting divorced after the kids have grown up or midway through, or people getting upset, or you find, people, coming out, this is what everybody else thought they wanted. I wanted, and I had to do it because I didn't, feel comfortable telling people I wanted to be this or be that. I back in the day, you couldn't even date interracially because it was a crime. And why was it a crime? Why would something like that be a crime? How could that be a crime? If you think about it, for 400 years, a whole continent was being pillaged by people who didn't live there. And interracial relationships was a crime, specifically in the US, from the very people who were bringing people over. So, I just went off into a tangent. I'm sorry. So, in other words, manifest, start to position yourself by doing the shadow work, the self-help, the rediscovery, the trauma, uh, what's the word I want to use, when you're discovery, when you're actually realizing, that there might be some traumas that you're holding, or experiencing. Start to live the way that you want to live in happiness. Start building the road and the path to the things that just naturally make you happy on a daily basis. And what does that do? That starts to open up the door. Your energy starts to suck in and magnetize people who are of that like mindset, who are also living and wanting to do the same things, or are just already doing those same things. You know how you walk around, sometimes you'll sit and say, how in the world, do you guys find these people and stuff like that? And oftentimes it's simply because I was living. Now, the key part to this is sometimes we find people in different stages of us living it. This goes back to the two types of love. If you're not going to set aside and say, I'm just taking some time to myself, understand that through the phases of you finding yourself, you may magnetize to people who are in older versions of yourself. You have to decide, do I want to latch on to that older version when I know I'm going around the corner? Because one thing you can't do is assume that a person is going to go around the corner with you, that a person is on the same journey as you, that a person thinks that something is, needs to be tweaked, or there's a different life that they want to lead. You can't assume that just because you're on a certain path or on a specific journey for yourself, you can't try to make other people come along. So this is when knowing what it is that you want, that manifestation, like I want, and it's not about money. Sometimes it's a happiness. Like I want to be in a space where I can, you know, be free to walk around, do what I want to do, move around, because I've always been this way. And I would love a companion at the same time. So that means I cannot entertain unless I know how to cut it off. I can't entertain someone who clearly has no desire to, number one, either get a passport or move out of the United States. I can't even entertain it. I can't entertain it, right? And what was happening for me is I had to get to a point where I could say it. And because I know for me, when I say it, that means that it is like bond at this point. Like I can't ignore the reality that that does not match at all. I don't care how nice, how cute, how, they really like seem like they like me and all this. It's BS. It's BS because in the end, now you're fighting about what you truly want. And we get to a certain point in our life where why are we still fighting about the only thing we have control over, which is our own selves? So now you're going to put yourself in a position to argue with someone else about what it is you say you want. And I can speak strongly about this because I literally have been doing this shadow work for the last 4 years. And it's just more and more that is uncovered and more and more and more. And I'm just like, wow. But each time I get this amazing opportunity to receive it. And the first time, like it hit me, the receiving part was when I denied it because it didn't look at all like what I've always said I wanted, all this stuff, right? And I was like, but wait a minute. Where are you going to get that in the color schema that you wanted? Not to say that it doesn't exist, but I find part of the conversation we were having on Sunday is, unfortunately for me, what I have found is I just don't find that free flowing black person with the dark skin. Like I haven't run into them yet. Not to say they don't exist, which is why I am traveling the world, right? Because I am not ruling out anything. I am not leaving any stone that I cross unturned at this point. But I can't literally ignore the fact that that almost doesn't exist in the world that I come from, not in the levels that I'd like for it to exist. Like I don't need to be in a Bezos category, and I don't want to be in that to explore and be free. There are components and levels to it that I want to experience, as well as the intellect and the ability. One of the things that I know that I learned that I really wanted was someone who can take care of things, who can fix things, who has knowledge with getting their hands dirty, knows how to do things. I've learned that even if I didn't have it, that was something that was like a turnoff, because I literally can fix a lot of things, not because I want to, but because that's just, how I've, kind of functioned in this space from being a teenager all the way, preteen, all the way up to where I am right now. And so why would I want to be around somebody who can't do anything, even if they can pay for it? Like it's just almost like a turnoff. And I understand that a lot of that is trauma. Um, it's from experiencing what that was like in a space where I didn't have any control over it, where it consumed the dynamics and it dictated how we functioned every day. Why would I want that, right? And so really honing into the things that really kind of spark you and allow for you to be in a peaceful state, whether you're a man or a woman. Those are the things that you literally have to grab onto and kind of follow down that path. Not the things that are like, well, this looks good and this is what everybody expects. Because then you're going to be in a something new situation where you're going to be sitting there crunching numbers. This is fun. No, it's not. I I don't have a desire. I know I've worked all my life. I've done all that, but I want to experience someone who knows how to balance those kinds of things and literally does not want to live in a typical corporate, traditional kind of lifestyle where we have to have this house that costs us $5,000 a month that we actually don't want to be in because we want to be off traveling somewhere, or whatever, that's just isn't what I want. And to get to a point where I'm comfortable saying that and I'm not worried about losing or missing out on something or somebody going, oh, well, she's not for me. The flip side of that is if you say it out loud, then you slice the cake and those people don't approach you because if they hear you, they know that most of the time they don't have a chance. Now you're going to get some that are going to approach you because they just want to test the water. Those are little serpents. Serpents. But you got to be steadfast in what you want. So anyway, that's what I wanted to share. So the 4 tips of how to get there or starting to work through this process once you realize, maybe what I want doesn't match what society or tradition or household or rules, religious, political, whatever, saying that it's supposed to look like, is to manifest it truly in and for yourself and believe in it. Position yourself, start to do the work to get to a position where you are living in it on a regular basis for you first, because if you're not doing it for you first, then you're still not being true to yourself. And then number 4, which is to receive it. So get to a position where when it presents itself, when the door opens, because 9 times out of 10 the door is going to open, and probably has already opened before, so it's going to cycle back around. This time you recognize it, this time you catch the door and you decide if you want to walk through it or not. So anyway, I hope that part 2 was helpful. I hope y'all um, appreciated that. If there's anything that you all want to share, please don't hesitate to comment in the comment section about, fetishizing, adoration, admiration, so on and so forth, whether or not you think people are different in different parts of the globe and why. I'm just sharing your experience. If you want to come on and be on a live chat with me, if you're on uh, check in the description and you will see my contact email, and I think my contact email is there, and you can, or go to the website and click contact us and you can email me and ask me about future opportunities to go live and chat, because I do screen. You can't just jump on live, because if I don't know you know what you're going to say or know what your position is, like we have people that jump in these comments and say some crazy stuff like on Sunday. There is a screening process. So, it's not just, oh, I want to come on, and you just pop on screen. It just doesn't work that way. So anyway, hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Please stay tuned for other things that are coming up. My YouTube, I'm going to be talking about, one of the things I want to talk about is, are people fake because they don't agree with what you're doing? That's one thing. And then I'm hoping to have some more collaborative discussions with the ladies that were on yesterday, as well as or Sunday, as well as some the other ladies that are in this space, this travel space, around what a day in the life looks like, what our experiences are in specific countries, just traveling as Black women. One thing I will say before I jump off is I was really not planning to cater to just Black women alone. But one of the things that, just keeps beating me in the face no matter what or where is I can be a solo traveler by name, but my experience as a Black solo traveler, oftentimes solo woman traveler, is often different than a Black male. And sometimes I have to explain this to Black males or males in general. You can't, I would never ask a male if something is safe for me, unless he's going to answer it from the perspective of a woman, of a solo woman, or of a woman. So let's say I'm in Greece, and not to say that they have in some negative things, but you hear about certain things. Turkey is another place where we're widely liked and admired. How safe is it? So unless you're going to look at it from that perspective, most of the time men answer from the perspective of their ability to walk around. Well, that doesn't help me as a woman, and then add in the element that I'm black as well, that I am American and I am traveling as a free American moving around this globe, which intrigues people. So anyway, I want to talk about a number of different things and bring those kinds of conversations to a head, and then also just talk to Black women in general because we carry so much weight on our shoulders. You know, it's okay uh, for you to say it's time to throw that weight off, to say, I'm not going to carry this weight anymore. I'm not going to be your superwoman. Um, what was her name? Stephanie Mills. I'm not your super. I'm not. We're not. And I think we are slowly but surely relinquishing that title, happily relinquishing that title, very gleefully relinquishing that title. And, just wanting to share what that's like and how we kind of go through these stages of doing so. So anyway, hopefully you guys will chime in, tune in, click subscribe so you get those notifications when those conversations are going to come up, and we will chat then. So if you guys are on, send me a thumbs up, a hello, something like that. Let me know where you are, and we will chat again soon. You guys know the drill from Ecuador, which is where I am right now. Toodles and noodles, peace and hair grease.